China's remarkable transformation.
The rivalry between the world's two biggest economies is rarely out of the headlines.
We've been ripped off by China.
What if I told you China has already won the economic race? Everyone says it's still ahead. Not symbolically, not in the future, right now. China produces over 30% of the global manufacturing. Over 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail connect hundreds of Chinese cities, while factories power global supply chains. That's why so many say the Chinese century is inevitable and America is finished. If history ran on spreadsheet alone, China's victory would already be framed and mounted. At first glance, it looks convincing. China may soon become the world's largest economy. It graduates millions of engineers every year. Its companies are overtaking Western rivals in cars, clean energy, and artificial intelligence. On paper, this is dominance, but history doesn't work on paper alone. No country has ever replaced a global leader just by getting richer or bigger. True power depends on something harder to measure: control over trade systems, financial rules, alliances, technology standards, even the global trust. That is where rising powers usually hit a wall. China is now approaching that point, so here is a real question. If economic dominance isn't enough, what actually decides who owns the future? Share your thoughts below. And before we continue, hit that like button, subscribe and share this video, because what comes next explains why stopping this shift may already be impossible. For decades, the story has been simple. China is rising because it is returning to a 5,000-year tradition of global supremacy. This idea is everywhere, from textbooks to think tank reports. The claim is that China's size, culture and history make its dominance inevitable, but the reality is far more complicated.
For most of its history, China was powerful within its own region, not across the globe. During the classical era, the Mediterranean and Middle Eastern civilizations led in trade networks, technology, and military reach. Rome built roads spanning tens of thousands of miles and projected power across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Islamic empires controlled trade from Spain to India and made advances in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine that rivaled China. Even when China was the richest region on Earth, roughly 500 to 1200 AD, it faced constant internal rebellions, external threats, and technological challenges that limited its ability to project power globally. The key mistake is assuming that size, longevity, or cultural influence automatically equals global dominance.
History shows that power is fragile, uneven, and rarely permanent, no matter how impressive it looks on paper. China's economy is enormous, it's true, but this alone doesn't equal control. On paper, China already surpassed the United States in purchasing power parity, a measure that adjusts for local prices, but that figure can be misleading.
At nominal exchange rates, which determine real global buying power, China is still smaller than the US. Part of the illusion comes from population. China has 4 times as many people as the United States, so even moderate productivity across a huge population produces massive totals. That doesn't mean the average Chinese citizen is richer or more productive than the average American. By mid-century, forecasts suggest the average Chinese worker could still be only 40% as wealthy as their US counterpart and half as productive. This is why comparing economies by GDP alone misses the bigger picture. The 20th century was not American simply because of output. It was American because the United States controlled the full system: finance, trade, alliances, technology, and culture.
Power is multidimensional, and this is where China begins to hit limits. It can become the world's largest economy in total numbers, but that doesn't automatically translate into influence or dominance over the global order. China's strength is real, and it cannot be ignored. It dominates industries from steel to solar panels. High-speed rail connect more than 550 cities across 40,000 kilometers, the largest network on Earth, while new industrial zones and energy projects rise in years, not decades.
This scale is powered by state-directed investment. In 2025 alone, China spent over $1.5 trillion on infrastructure and industrial development, and the government mobilizes millions of workers to build factories, ports, and power plants almost overnight. Centralized coordination allows the country to move capital and labor faster than any market-driven economy could. Domestic demand amplifies this effect. Over 70% of Chinese manufacturing output is consumed internally, from electric vehicles to smartphones, meaning China is less reliant on Western markets than many assume. But there is a crucial distinction. Speed and scale alone do not create global dominance.
Building the biggest factories or the longest rail lines doesn't guarantee control over trade networks, financial rules, or technology standards. That is the next challenge, and it is where China begins to encounter limits that shared production cannot overcome. China has made enormous strides in technology, but there is a ceiling that is often overlooked.
Not all innovation is the same. One type focuses on scaling and optimizing existing technologies. The other creates world-changing breakthroughs that redefine entire industries. China excels at the first. Its factories in Shenzhen and Shanghai turn ideas into products faster than almost anywhere else on Earth. In 2025, China installed more industrial robots than the rest of the world combined, and companies like BYD overtook Tesla in global electric vehicle sales. Its AI firms, drone manufacturers, and solar panel producers commercialize innovations at breathtaking speed. But leading in manufacturing does not automatically mean leading in ideas. China struggles with open scientific exchange, risk-taking research, and a strong intellectual property culture. According to UNESCO data, China publishes the most scientific papers globally, but citations per paper remain lower than the United States, indicating less influence at the frontier of knowledge. Breakthrough technologies like advanced semiconductors, quantum computing, and high-end biotech remain concentrated in countries with more open research ecosystems.
You can dominate production without dominating the future of ideas, and that distinction is where China's technological ceiling becomes visible. True global power is more than size or speed. The United States became dominant not just because of its economy, but because it built a system others rely on.
U.S. alliances cover 50 countries in Europe, Asia, and the Pacific.
Yes, somebody wants to destroy all of this, but it still works.
Its military secures sea lanes that carry over 80% of global trade, while the US dollar remains the world's primary reserve currency, used in over 60% of international transactions. Washington also underwrites energy stability, helping keep oil markets functioning across multiple continents. Nations follow willingly because trust and shared rules make cooperation predictable. China, by contrast, operates differently. Its approach is transactional, self-interested, and largely regional. It secures the South China Sea shipping lanes, which carry roughly 30% of global maritime trade, and invests heavily in energy and trade corridors. But it does not provide global public goods at the scale of the US.
Leadership on this scale requires cooperation, trust, and alliances. That is exactly where China hits structural limits no factory, railroad, or AI breakthrough can overcome. China's rise is real. By 2030, it could account for 40% of global manufacturing, lead in electric vehicles, solar panels, and AI, and graduate over 3.5 million STEM students every year. Its cities are linked by more than 42,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, and its companies dominate key industries worldwide. China will be powerful and influential, able to shape entire sectors, but dominance isn't just about size. China won't control culture, English remains global, and Chinese media has limited reach. It won't run global institutions, enforce trade rules, or lead alliances. The future will be multipolar, competitive and fragmented, with no single country fully in charge. China can rise without ruling, and that changes everything. So here is the real question to you. If China reaches the top but can't lead the system, what happens next? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video so you won't miss other upcoming content. Catch you in the next one.